Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. This video was inspired by some discourse in the comments of my previous videos, and it sparked my curiosity to think about this topic some more for myself. So this video is an attempt to give my opinion on the matter of pastors who buy expensive things. Is it wrong? Now on its face, I don't think it's wrong. Expensive sometimes is relative. Something that is $50 you only use once or twice can be expensive to something that costs $3,000 or $4,000 that you use every day, like a used car. Now, aside from arguing semantics, we do have legitimate examples of pastors who flaunt their very expensive things. Like this man with his jacket, this man and his shoes, this man and his shirt. Which, why are you even buying Supreme? This man with his shoes, this man with his shoes, this man with his shoes, this man with the beach ball. Again, what's with the Supreme? This man with his jacket, this man with his shoes, this man with his sweater, this man with his jacket. It looks like he got sorted into the fifth house of Harry Potter that nobody talks about. This man with his shoes, this man with his bag, this man with his jacket, this man with his shoes, this man with his hoodie, this man with his shoes, this man with his... If I see one more Supreme, I'm not going to make it through this video. But why even care? Like, some would argue, if you have the money and you can afford it, then there's nothing wrong with that. Some say expensive items shouldn't come from the church or be bought by pastors, as it could reflect the worldly ways of the world from a secular perspective. Before we get into all that, what is a pastor? I'd like to take a minute to define what that is or what that means. So when I'm saying something, you understand where I'm coming from. Now, I realize this can be a big task to define pastors because there's a lot of different sects of religion. So what my definition is may not include your pastor. And if that is the case, then I guess consider them lucky? I don't know. From a Westerner perspective, we all kind of have a basic idea of what a pastor means. Like, someone that stands in the pulpit, they give a message concerning about the verses in the Bible. Sometimes they make it topical to real world events. But usually, for the most part, we are thinking of somebody that is morally upstanding and they have good intentions. Now, for the word nerds out there, the word pastor comes from the Latin pastor, which is spelled the same way, which means to shepherd. In a figurative sense, it means to be a spiritual guide, a shepherd of souls, and a Christian minister or clergyman, person, woman. Clergyman. Clergyman? Clergy person. Clergyman. Anyways, so even from the figurative or literal sense of that word, the word pastor carries some type of gravitas or level of importance, especially concerning the wellness and care of people's spiritual journeys. Before we get too lost in the sauce, I would like to reference the biblical qualifications of what it means to be a pastor. And I'm referencing the Judeo-Christian Bible because this is the same Bible that is referenced by these megachurch TV online millionaire luxury pastors in the effort to legitimize their message. And if they can legitimize their message, then they can most likely convince you even more so to donate to their church, cause, ministry, whatever they call it. But coincidentally, the same Bible that they use is also the same one that has instructions on how they should govern themselves as pastors. So let's see if they meet up to any of these qualifications. I have two big passages of text here, and I'll be focusing on the highlighted sections. Timothy 3:1-7, it says, "Be self-controlled, not a lover of money. Conduct yourself in a manner worthy of full respect. He must not be a recent convert, or he may become conceited." And in Titus 1:5-9, it says not to be overbearing, nor pursue dishonest gain. Now, even from just these highlighted sections alone, from what I'm seeing, it seems like a majority of these TV prosperity, luxury, bigger-than-life pastors have some explaining to do. Now, to be fair, disclaimer, I'm not a biblical scholar here in any sense of the word. I'm just looking stuff up that you can find. So if there's something that I'm missing from my mini analysis here, let me know in the comments. What I'm also trying to say throughout this video is that pastors should be able to handle money because they are the most responsible party for the things happening in and around their church. Now, when talking about pastors and money, I found some interesting facts about the average salaried pastor. Now, according to this screenshot here, you can see that, it's nothing to sneeze at. But are you living a glamorous lifestyle off of this money? Maybe not really. Like in New York, the average pastor makes about $71,000. In California, it's about, we are down on this list. It's about $55,000. And the very last on the list is Arkansas at $46,000. And it's nothing to sneeze at, but it's not the same way of living like these other TV pastors. And aside from that, a lot of pastors who pastor also work a second job. So I guess state of the times, I don't know, but that's the average. Now, why bring up salaries or the average salaried pastor? This is why. What I'm trying to point out is that the pastor who is boots on the ground, praying for you in person, you can see them eye to eye, going into the hospitals, praying for you, doing funeral rites, wedding ceremonies, and leading Wednesday night Bible sessions or whatever. You can call them up and they have them pray for you over the phone. The person who you are most in contact with is living an average or sometimes below average lifestyle, while these TV pastors who are busy shilling out these personal prayer packages and magic grain bread and branded holy water, which does exist, you might see them maybe once or twice a year, unless you have like a super connected like network of people that get to be around this pastor. You're most likely going to see them either on TV or at a convention once or twice a year. And how often are they praying for you over the phone? You know what I'm saying? How often are they visiting you in your home? How often are they visiting you in the hospital? You know what I'm saying? So with the average pastor here and these luxury TV millionaire pastors over here, what's the difference between them? Does it matter? And how is tithing related to it? This may not be the most scientific, sociological, correct perspective to take, but this is how I see it. Pastors are the face and representative of their religion and religious practices. Their reputation is most likely the defining factor in if a person donates, and if so, how much they donate. Now, of course, I do believe that the people who donate their money should be able to exercise their own judgment and discernment well enough to know who and what and where and how much to give. But how many times have we been duped by clever advertising to buy something that was a piece of junk? My point is that it's not necessarily about how much a pastor makes or what they buy, but that they are responsible and liable for the money and resources that are given to them under their guidance from the people who typically give under well-intentioned pretenses. But speaking of tithing, why do people do it at all? Now, I know there are some very how do I put this? There are some, I know that there are practices that are rooted in the Bible and different, pseudo things you should do but aren't necessarily written down on the 10 Commandments kind of thing. I don't know how else to say that. But, there's some churches where it's like, give 10% or you're out, that kind of thing. So I know that exists. But aside from those reasons, I feel like the main reason why people give money to the church is to promote its welfare and the community as well. So that could include, but not limiting to, maintaining the church facilities, charity outreach programs, vacation Bible schools, mission trips, and helping people who are financially struggling. Like I was saying earlier, when money is given to the church, it's usually given under good faith pretenses. You're not giving your money away to a neutral organization. You expect something good to come from your tithe. When you have the average pastor over here versus the TV mega church $1 billion movie deal making pastors over here, then one has to wonder, what does one have to do to make hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars a year? Of course, there are legitimate ways of earning an additional income. Like, let's say you studied the ancient languages, you learned past cultural contexts that don't exist anymore, and participated in academic research groups in order to decode the past, and you wrote a book about it. Maybe you're also a professor and a pastor, like going back to the dual income thing. Maybe you have a way of speaking that helps people get the message and how they can apply it to the real life, and you have a very successful podcast and or speaking engagements that you charge a decent amount of money for. Now, of course, a crooked pastor could write thousands of books and claim that they're legitimate. They could have a podcast and say that they have some unique knowledge from their degree from Crackerjack University. But to me, a defining factor between something that's good versus not is quality and intent. Now I'm going to segue into the realm of prosperity teaching like a bird flying into a clean window, and discuss where the concept of good-natured tithing takes a bit of a left turn for me. Now here's a mini synopsis from Wikipedia about prosperity teaching, and it gives a decent framework for what I'll be discussing for the rest of this video. Prosperity theology, sometimes referred to as prosperity gospel, the health and wealth and gospel, the gospel of success, or seed faith, is a religious belief among some charismatic Christians that financial blessing and physical well-being are always the will of God for them, and that faith, positive speech, and donations to religious causes will increase one's material wealth. Material, and especially financial success, is seen as a sign of divine favor. For those of us who are not in the prosperity circles, that type of language seems disingenuous to promise that good health and money will come your way if you give enough, if you believe hard enough, if you say enough good things. But imagine that you or someone you know is behind on bills. Maybe they have a medical condition that requires extensive and expensive treatments, and you feel like you may not make it to the next month on the money you have coming in. So then you decide to turn on the television to distract yourself, and then you see this.
Right now, I want you quickly. I want you ordering that personal pet package right now. Quickly, I want you to move out right now. Don't procrastinate this. Don't put it off. I want you ordering that personal pet package right now. It's our point of contact between you, God, and myself, and God is going to use it to cause the miracle. God's anointing is on that personal prayer package, just like his anointing is on me to pray and to help hurting people.
Again, it really is easy to exploit people's hardships, especially when they're desperately looking for a way out. And as a matter of opinion, that mirrors more of a fact. You can kind of tell what the social or economic problems are at the time, depending on the types of miracles that these TV pastors say they can heal you from. Like, I always knew obesity was quite the epidemic, not just in the United States, but all over the world, but I didn't realize it was this bad.
Do you see that? Do you see that? Do you see reducing?
Now, I would have different feelings about prosperity teaching if there were more verifiable cases of people's mortgages, medical bills, student loans, tax liens, rent, whatever, being paid off.
Come again, sir. I'm getting back in line.
But unlike Patrick, and more like Mr. Krabs, these pastors seem to use the opportunities to make money, to make more money, and then to keep it for themselves. Case in point is none other than Joyce Meyer. Meyer? I'm not actually sure. According to her Wikipedia, under salary and finances, Meyer, who owns several homes and travels in a private jet, has been criticized for living in an excessive lifestyle. She doesn't defend her spending habits because there's no need for us to apologize for being blessed. There are times and instances where people will go against you even though you're working hard to make a better life for yourself and most likely your other friends and family that want better for you. When you've received those blessings from that hard work, then yes, of course, there's nothing to be ashamed of. But she goes on to say, you can be a businessman here in St. Louis and people think the more money you have, And people think the more you have, the more wonderful it is. But if you're a preacher, then all of a sudden it becomes a problem. And you know what, Miss Meyer? And you know what, Miss Meyer? I do have a problem with this. When you're literally treating God, the Bible, church, etc., like a business, which she is, because she just told us that, so I'm literally interpreting what she is saying. What you have done is converted that person who has a soul, who is worried about their spiritual journey, who has trauma, who is shaking their fist at God because they don't understand why all these things are happening to them. You've taken that person and turned them into a commodity. How many times have they donated $50 in the last financial quarter? How many conferences have they signed up for? How many times did they click the link in my newsletter? How many times have they called this toll-free number? That's what you turned them into. And if that is not a table-flipping offense, I don't know what is. Now, the thing that gives me a wine-induced headache about prosperity teaching, if you haven't caught on to it yet, is that it's a complete 180 from the biblical requirements of being a pastor. When you're talking about having self-control, when you're talking about not being a lover of money or conducting yourself in a manner worthy of full respect, not being overbearing, and not pursuing dishonest gain, these prosperity teachers, in my opinion, miss the mark. And they do more than miss the mark. They try to use the same Bible, the same idea of God, the same circles of Christianity, and the same tenets and language and all that kind of stuff to convince people who are down and out, who need the help, to help them be more rich and be more detached from the reality that the average person is going through. That's what let me not. Let's just say I don't like that. So, in an effort to wrap up this video, here are my final thoughts. Is it possible for a megachurch pastor to be kind, pure of heart, have all the biblical qualifications, and just have a crap ton of money? Sure, crazier things have happened. But my thing is this: money, power, and influence all have the potential to attract and corrupt the mind of a person, especially if they are chronically lacking in personal discipline and virtue. So whether you're making $30,000 a year to $3.5 million a year, a greedy person will try to manipulate their situation to their egotistical advantage. And when certain avenues are taken to be ultra rich, ultra influential, and be surrounded by all these earthly pleasures, then it makes me wonder, why did this person choose this path in life? So in the end, it's not really about expensive things that these pastors like to have or to buy, but when it gets in the way of being kind, caring, compassionate, resilient, humble, and responsible, then that's when I have a problem with the issue of money and pastors, or anybody and money. I'm just on the internet with my opinion, with an awkward length haircut. So take anything I say with a less than grain of salt. As long as you are aware of the person that you're giving your money to and you are okay with it, then all I have to say is Godspeed.